post-game reaction.
Oh, hell yeah.
This is Dubs OT.
Can't wait.
With John Dickinson.
Hey, JD, what you up to, sugar? Long time no talk to.
On KNBR 104.5 and 680. Streaming live at KNBR.com and on the KNBR app.
Playing the clock, playing the situation. Like I mentioned, 2-for-1 opportunity. Curry to Draymond, and it's blocked by Kessler. They've got a 5-on-4. Chance to tie it. George for the lead. Got it!
Wow. I mean, that's a new low on a night that's supposed to be a pretty big high for the Golden State Warriors as we welcome you in here to Dubs OT with JD on this Wednesday night. And what a wild Wednesday night it is. 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. That is the number to give us a call or shoot us a text here as we reopen up the phone lines here to talk some Warriors basketball on the Sports Leader. Warriors lose to the Jazz by a final of 131-128. I mean, an absolute smoke job by the Golden State Warriors. I mean, on a night where right before the game, Steve Kerr calls the entire team into the locker room as guys are warming up just about an hour before tip-off to basically tell them the news that the team has acquired Jimmy Butler and Andrew Wiggins is going out, along with Kyle Anderson and Lindy Waters III and Dennis Schroeder, who was just acquired, and a bunch of guys going a bunch of different places. And the Warriors get Jimmy Butler. And then they go out and the Warriors smoke this game in the first 3 minutes and the last 3 minutes, up 122-111 with 2:55 to go. 122-111 with 2:55 to go. And the Jazz end up outscoring the Warriors from there 20-6. So an 11-point lead turns into a 3-point loss. And that is one of the worst, if not the worst, loss of the season for the Warriors. And that's saying something. Jazz are 4-18 at home coming into this game. They pick up their 5th home win. They're 12-37 now on the season. Warriors right back to 500 at 25-25, just as they were 24-24 and 23-23 and 22-22 and 21. And I'm going to spare you the rest of it. And so a night that could have been a real building block of, hey, 2 games over 500. You finally make the big move. You finally choose a direction. And the Warriors absolutely smoked the game in the closing seconds and in the early part of the game as well, because the Warriors were clearly shaken in the early part of this game. The first 3.5 minutes, the Warriors found themselves down 14-2. So with a bunch of guys headed elsewhere, and Andrew Wiggins moving on to Miami with the Jimmy Butler acquisition, the Warriors went out and immediately fell behind 14-2, 17-4, and the Warriors wind up in a spot where they had to climb all the way back, but did, as you would expect against a team like the Jazz, even as shorthanded. And the Warriors got a lot of really good performances from a lot of guys. You know, Steph Curry, 32, big turnover that started the run back the other way in favor of the Jazz late. It feels like every time the Warriors blow a game like that or can't execute down the stretch, there's at least one Curry mind-boggling turnover involved somewhere. So the Warriors waste a 29-point Brandon Pajemski game. The Warriors waste positive performances off the bench from Kevon Looney and Gary Payton II, who could be the next two on the move here between now and the trade deadline at noon Pacific time tomorrow. They wasted Jackson Rowe just up from the G League plus 17, and they wind up losing 131 to 128. So the climb will begin for the Warriors in the Jimmy Butler era, as the trade not yet official, but agreed to, with Jimmy Butler coming to the Warriors. Andrew Wiggins goes to Miami along with Kyle Anderson. The Jazz get Dennis Schroeder, and Lindy Waters III ends up going to Detroit. The Warriors also sending a top 10 protected first-round pick in this June's draft of 2025. And Jimmy Butler comes in, and Jimmy Butler agrees to a 2-year, $112 million contract extension through 2026-27. So the Warriors get Jimmy Butler for the remainder of this year. He declines his option for next year, and the Warriors are able to put another year on the back end. So a 2-year, 112 for the final two. And now Steph, Draymond, and Jimmy Butler are all locked and loaded for the next 2 years, and the Warriors will still continue to try and mold this roster between now and noon tomorrow before they take on the Lakers in the second of a back-to-back, and then the trip really gets cooking. Chicago, Milwaukee, Dallas, and Houston before the All-Star break, and another road game coming out of the break in Sacramento. So horrific loss for the Warriors, and so they will begin, and hell, they're decent likelihood second of a back-to-back against the Lakers. Lakers won't have Luka tomorrow, or obviously Anthony Davis, who got traded to the Mavs, along with Max Christie. But the Warriors find themselves probably going to have to begin the uphill climb from at least either one over or one under. I would anticipate that the earliest Jimmy Butler would be available would be on Saturday in Chicago. So we welcome everybody watching on YouTube and Twitch. As always, we've got Kyle Haar in our San Francisco studios. We got a lot of the regulars chiming in. Kyle, I don't even know what to say, man. Like, tonight is one of those, and look, you learn over the last couple of years with the Warriors that you count no game as in the bag, because they have blown. 2 years ago, they blew a game in Utah to a much better Jazz team than this one, I think with a 6-point lead and about 30 seconds left. They blew a game in Sacramento last year. I think they had a 6-point lead with about 1:05 left and ended up losing. I mean, the Toronto game this year. I mean, the Warriors they've blown big leads that turned into, losses going away. I mean, San Antonio. I mean, the Warriors have just lost so many leads. Brooklyn at home this year. So I never count a game as in the bag. But going up against that Utah team with 3 minutes to go, and you're up double digits. It's not like, 6-point lead, couple shot. And the Warriors just completely – I'm kind of at a loss. This show is going to be entirely, for the most part, about Jimmy Butler. Like, hey, here we are, 808 KNBR. Let's react to the Jimmy Butler trade. And we will, if you want to weigh in with your thoughts on that. I mean, that is going to be predominantly what we talk about on this show here as we go between now and at least 10 o'clock, maybe beyond. But, Kyle, I'm at a loss, man, because that's about as bad as it gets in terms of a collapse and a night where the Warriors really didn't have it early emotionally. You could tell. I mean, they were just flat. They were shook. They found out an hour before the game that a bunch of guys, a third of the roster, was going elsewhere, and they were getting a big-time alpha personality that's been suspended 3 different times this year by his former team in the Miami Heat, and the vibes are about to change. So they were shook. They fought back. They had a lot of really good performances from some role players getting opportunities, and then they completely tricked the game away. I'm at a loss, man, honestly, here. Give me your quick thoughts on this as we kind of reset the table here.
Yeah, I almost want to give them a pass for just how they came out, but then it seemed like they got into the game in that mid-second quarter. And it felt like, okay, they're back into the flow of things. Pods is playing incredibly. Steph is doing his thing. Draymond's doing his. They're all doing their part, and they're in the flow of things. But it's just the same old Warriors. And then it goes back to some of the shows that we've done earlier in the year where it's like, if the Warriors had so-and-so player, this could be different. And now Jimmy Butler is here, and I would like to think that he would put an end to that Jazz run to close the game.
Yeah, you would think. And again, the unfortunate part in a lot of these games is it's been the main guys. It's been Steph and it's been Draymond who have been the guys who've really keyed these runs for the opposition and been the guys who have made a lot of the mind-bogglingly bad plays that have allowed teams to get back in it. So, you're hoping that that's just one more guy that can get you one or two more buckets late that you can just, because you do want to go ISO in a lot of those situations, and just, Jimmy can create for somebody and the like. But man, that is one that I think among the many can come back to haunt, especially when you look at the second of the back-to-back against the Lakers. And then on the road, and the acclimation process that's going to happen in all likelihood on the road here before the Warriors get back for the All-Star break, really are able to get a couple of practices in and get Jimmy Butler full bore into the mix. 808 KNBR 415-808-5627. That is the number to give us a call or shoot us a text here if you want to weigh in on the Jimmy Butler trade. Again, quick reset. We got one on the line already here. We'll get to Adam, our tip-off caller tonight here on the Sports Leader, but we do have lines open if you want to jump in and join the conversation. Do you like the Jimmy Butler trade? I'll give you my thoughts on that as well here, but just to kind of lay things out again, the Warriors acquire Jimmy Butler. Butler also agrees to a 2-year contract extension, so he is signed for next season and the following season, 2026-27. So he is signed for the next 2.5 seasons at 2 years and $112 million. Warriors getting the extension done there. Kyle Anderson, Andrew Wiggins and Kyle Anderson go to the Heat along with a top 10 protected 2025 draft pick. The Jazz get Dennis Schroeder. So one of those where Schroeder gets moved, goes on the trip with the Warriors to Salt Lake City, and then will remain in Salt Lake City and join his new team. I wonder if he ends up getting flipped at some point in the next few hours here, 15 hours basically to go until the trade deadline passes. Originally, Kyle Anderson was going to the Raptors. That apparently fell through. The Raptors have traded for Brandon Ingram here within the last 20 minutes or so from the Pelicans, and then the Pistons end up taking on Lindy Waters III. But the Warriors get their guy. They get their alpha on a day that saw them lose out on Kevin Durant when it appeared as if a deal for Kevin Durant was all but done, a 3-way deal that would have landed Butler with Phoenix, Durant with the Warriors, and Wiggins with Miami. It sounds like maybe Jonathan Kuminga would have been going in the deal as well to Phoenix. So they would have been splitting Kuminga to Phoenix and Andrew Wiggins to Miami, but Durant made it be known that he didn't want to rejoin the Warriors. And so the Warriors immediately put the full court press back onto trying to re-engage with Miami and get Jimmy Butler from Miami out here to the San Francisco Bay. So your thoughts on that, 808 KNBR. Let's get to the phones and get it going here with Adam in San Jose, our tip-off caller tonight on the Sports Leader. Hey, Adam, you're on Dubs OT.
What's up, JD? So not to sound like a Debbie Downer or anything, but I think our problems go beyond the need of a second superstar, and I don't think Jimmy is going to be the solution. We gave up $131 to a bunch of role players tonight. We lost an elite defender in Andrew Wiggins and a pesky defender in Dennis Schroeder. Jimmy's known to be a cancer in the locker room, so I hope he doesn't bring everybody else down and create a hostile locker room. And then honestly, I think the most Jimmy's going to do for us is sell more seats at Chase Center. I don't think we're going to be the same play-in team, and I don't think we'll make it to the playoffs.
All right, thanks for the call. I'll jump in and respond to all of that. I think the last part first. There's no question whether it's sell more seats or be more interesting to talk about. That part is unequivocally yes. The Warriors are much more interesting, volatile, however you want to say it, a team tonight than they were last night or than they've been really at any point in the last 2 years. I'm not going to go full blown into the post-championship season when they still were able to win a first-round series against the Kings before losing in the second round to the Lakers. But last season and this season, this team has been, other than the 12-3 start, basically a bore and basically a team that we've known didn't have enough from the jump. So, yeah, they do become a more interesting team. I do think they become a bigger ticket. As far as the rest of it, I would agree with the first thing that you said, that the problems do go beyond the need of a second star. The reality, though, is that doesn't mean that you don't get a second star. when you have the opportunity to. The Warriors still needed a second star, and they needed to pick a direction, I think, more than anything. And the only direction to pick is to go after someone that fits the Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Steve Kerr timeline. And so I think because the price went down on acquiring Jimmy Butler, because he's been suspended not one, not two, but 3 times here this season, because he was ticked off about the lack of the Heat giving him a contract extension, and he wanted more than just the 2 years the Warriors are giving him. He wanted a 4-year. He wanted double the contract extension he got from the Warriors. He wanted a 4-year, 225 type of a contract extension. That wasn't going to be in the cards. He feuded with Pat Riley, who suspended him 3 times. He basically quit on the Heat. Look, this is not, I'm in favor of the move. I like the move. I will lay out the reasons why I think it's a worthy risk for the Warriors, but make no mistake, I do not think that this move is without risk because of the fact that Jimmy Butler's basically quit on 3 different teams, not just the Miami Heat. He quit. I was at a game in Sacramento in 2018 where he quit on the Minnesota Timberwolves. Shut it down in a game where they had a lead in Sacramento, blew the lead late, and the next morning he was shipped out. The next morning he was gone because he has quit on multiple teams. Now, if you read between the lines, well, why did he quit? Why has he been a so-called cancer in the locker room? Well, he wanted to get paid. So if the Warriors were making this move and it was a rental where he could opt out of his contract and become a free agent, or he was going to be disgruntled complaining about the lack of a contract extension from the Warriors, then I think that would have been enough risk to maybe not look to make the move. But the Warriors were able to get him to take the 2-year extension, which I think has been on the table the entire time, by the way. Butler had said he wasn't interested in an extension for the Warriors, and I think the reason he wasn't interested in a 2-year extension with the Warriors is because he wanted a 4-year extension from the Suns. Well, when everything fell apart between the Warriors and Durant earlier today, the Suns and Heat were trying to get a deal done. They couldn't. And when the Suns and Heat couldn't get a deal done for Jimmy Butler to go from Miami to Phoenix with Kevin Durant potentially going the other way back to Miami, then he found himself in a spot where he wasn't going to get any kind of an extension. And so the Warriors were waiting and said, hey, that 2, we'll still give it to you. And so he accepts it. And I'm sure there will be pieces written about some of the details and conversations ahead that went down between Jimmy and either Steph or Draymond or somebody in the Warriors front office that convinced him to say, hey, this is what the best option is. But money talks. And let's be honest, this is about the money. He ended up taking the most guaranteed money he could get before the Heat said, we're not shipping you out at all. Show up or get suspended and lose the rest of your salary for the remainder of the year. So that being said, again, there is a risk for the Warriors. This is not risk-free, but I think they're betting that he will not be a locker room cancer because he signed for the remainder of this year and now for 2 more seasons. The Warriors' problems do go beyond a second star. I'm gonna give a little on the 131 tonight. They were shook. They found out an hour before the game that this was going down, and so they were going to play shorthanded. They lost about a third of their team to have to go out there and play. Even Steph and Draymond, I mean, that'll shake you up a little bit. The only guy that didn't look shook was Podziemski in this game early. But that being said, you get down 14-2, you get down 17-4. And you got to suck it up, come back as they did, and then finish the deal. So losing Andrew Wiggins is tough, but Andrew Wiggins is not an alpha, not a 2, and he had to go in the deal to make the salaries work, and he plays the same position as Butler. He's going to be a 3-man that can be maybe a small ball 4 at times, but you're getting, even though older, a better player and more of an alpha, a true number 2 next to Steph Curry with Draymond Green. And now you have a direction. Now you're all in on trying to be as good as you can be for the next 2.5 years around Steph and around Draymond. Here's the other part of this deal that I like. As you listen here to KNBR 104.5 FM and 680 AM San Francisco, the sports leader, a Cumulus media station. It's Dubs OT with JD here. Warriors lose to the Jazz, but that is secondary, as hideous as it was, to the primary topic tonight, which is the Warriors acquiring Kevin Durant. Warriors didn't acquire Kevin Durant. They were trying to acquire Kevin Durant. Well, the Warriors acquiring Jimmy Butler from the Miami Heat. They didn't give up any of their young players. They didn't give up Kuminga. And look, Kuminga was going to have to be a part of this deal if Jimmy Butler doesn't get himself suspended for 3 different occasions this season. Jimmy Butler's suspensions basically allowed for the Warriors to keep Jonathan Kuminga. If you make the Durant move, Kuminga's going the other way. Obviously, you're getting a more steady player, scorer, offensive option. If you get Durant, and Kuminga likely would have been going the other way. And I think in a deal for Kuminga, or in a deal for Durant, Kuminga being a part of it would have been acceptable, along with Andrew Wiggins. But not for Jimmy Butler, who's been suspended 3 times and was kind of out of options. Warriors didn't give up Kuminga, though. They didn't give up Pajemski. They didn't give up Moody, and they didn't give up Trace Jackson-Davis. So the Warriors gave up none of their young players. They gave up a 2025 protected pick that won't convey in all likelihood. I mean, it will convey in all likelihood. They won't need top 10 protected. Warriors are hoping that they're going to be better than that. And look, if they end up in the lottery and they get lucky, then they'll keep the pick. If they're bad enough, have injuries, whatever, if this whole thing careens on them, they'll be able to keep the pick, and the pick will get flushed to the next year. So in all likelihood, the Warriors weren't really interested in bringing another young player in the teens in to try and continue to develop. They have enough of those, and they didn't lose any of them. I'll give you another reason why I do like the move. The Warriors still have options ahead of them. They still have Gary Payton II's contract that they can package. They still have Kevon Looney's contract that they can package together between now and noon tomorrow in an attempt to try and make another deal. And my belief is that the Warriors are strongly scouring the market for a stretch big. The Warriors are looking for a big man, whether it's Vucevic or Miles Turner or somebody else. They're looking for a big that they can that can shoot the 3 ball a little bit, and in a perfect world can protect the rim. So I think that's priority number 1. I think the Warriors know they need more shooting, and in particular, more shooting from that position, especially with Jimmy Butler, who can be kind of a streaky up and down shooter, and especially given the fact that Kuminga is remaining on the roster at this particular point in time. So those are my initial thoughts on it. 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. We're going to keep it rolling here. We got a lot of people that want to talk, so let's get to the phones. Tomas in San Jose. What's going on, Tomas?
Hey, JD. Thanks for taking my call. I just think that the situation is unfortunate. No matter which way you slice it, you'd like to be in a better position where you don't need to be making any kind of moves like this, but we aren't. The hot stretch we were on in the beginning of the season didn't last. Some holes started to, reveal themselves. And so I think this is the best of what we could have made out of the situation. I think Jimmy Butler actually could end up being a bit of a role model for Jonathan Kuminga, similar games they have. And I do think that it is a risk with Jimmy's past and obviously the way he's quit on the teams. But I think just like you said, that getting all that contract stuff situated, now he can join the championship ethos of that the Warriors have, the pedigree that we have, along with imparting that killer instinct that, Jimmy has on a JK. And I think that might be the missing link to JK's development. It's that laser focus, that developing that instinct. You can still see a little bit in his game of him being a little too ahead of himself, a little too twitchy. And I think Jimmy could help impart on him more comfortability on the court. And I think that is part of the play for making this move. With JK's future sort of up in the air, I think he will want to stay with Jimmy and the team. And, it is risky. I do think that there is a possibility this whole thing goes down the drain, but You know, people have been clamoring to make the most of Steph's years, and I think this is unfortunately the best options that we have right now.
Yeah, look, when Jimmy Butler's motivated, Tomas, when he's motivated, he's awesome. And I think getting the contract stuff handled, you trust that he will be motivated. And when I say awesome, like had the potential 2 years ago to carry a team to the finals. I mean, he did it. Not even the potential. He did it. Now he'd be doing that with Steph Curry. And look, are they a contender now? I'm going to say no until they prove otherwise. Like I'm not somebody that's going to sit here and tell the world that I think the Warriors right now are a championship contender. There are too many unknowns. There are too many other portions of the roster that I think have to be fixed, but they've picked a direction. And I think that's the first step. And they didn't give up any of the young players that people were so concerned, Kuminga being among them, that you didn't want to give up on maybe too quickly, even though this is Kuminga's fourth year. So again, I don't think it matters whether they're a contender or not. I think the risk was necessary to infuse some life into this team, into the back portion of this season, and also set the course for clearly stating what the direction is from now into the offseason and for next year. It's the first part of next year's team. Not that they're shutting it down for this year. They're going to try to go as far as they can, but you're going to get a chance to do that and then see all the different things that you need to fix in the offseason when you have a full board to try and make some other moves and really build it around Steph and Jimmy and Draymond Green.
100%. Yeah.
Thanks, Thomas.
Yeah, take care.
Good phone call, Thomas. Appreciate you. As for the Kuminga part, the role model for Kuminga, I'm not sure. I don't love, to be honest, I don't love Butler and Kuminga, the fit there, because Kuminga is kind of an alpha with the ball. And I think Kuminga and Wiggins at times didn't work. At times it did. When it worked, I thought, because their personalities were different. Kuminga on the court wants to be aggressive. Wiggins would defer. And I think at times when it clicked, it was because of that balance. Kuminga's a guy that wants to get paid large. And look, it's looking like he will be on the Warriors past the deadline tomorrow, which means the next thing up is a decision on a contract for Kuminga, who will be a restricted free agent in the summer. So the Warriors have the ability to be able to let the market play out on Kuminga if they go that route and match any offer. But I do think I'm not going to say it can't work, but I will say my initial thought on Butler Kuminga, it doesn't really fit well. But the Warriors do have options. They can bring Kuminga back if they don't trade him tomorrow, which I don't think they will. And they can see how it fits. And if it doesn't, Kuminga could be a sign and trade candidate in the offseason. Kuminga could be somebody that the Warriors wait out his market and try to get him on a bargain and look to move him at some point, maybe this time next year. Like, they don't have to be in panic mode when it comes to Jonathan Kuminga either, but he also still is a chip that can be included in another deal to continue to build this roster out. And let's be honest, tonight is not the end. Tonight is not the end of what the Warriors are trying to accomplish. Tonight is the beginning of what the Warriors are trying to accomplish in acquiring Jimmy Butler from the Miami Heat. 808 KNBR, more on the phones. Danny in Vancouver next here on the Sports Leader. Hey, Danny.
Hey, my friend. How are you?
Well, I'm doing well. A lot to chew on, man. The last couple of days have been wild with all the rumors. And I mean, I woke up this morning thinking it was going to be Durant, although I had heard some rumblings that Durant maybe wasn't too keen on the idea. Turned out to be true. And then the quick pivot. And I tell you, Danny, I think the Warriors looked at the Durant thing falling apart, and I don't think they gave up too much. I mean, Wiggins had to go in the deal because of the salaries. And so I think it's a risk, but I think it's a worthy risk given the way everything turned out. And they didn't let it get to Miami and Phoenix going back and forth for another 15 hours to where maybe you end up with the one guy who doesn't get any of the stars that are available.
Yeah. I will say it's crazy. It's been a nice little distraction from everything that's going on in the real world. So that's something.
Question.
Just a couple comments on the game, and I want to talk about the trade, and I have a question for you, sir. I know you said you thought they might be a little bit shook up about the whole trade. I could almost argue the opposite way. I thought there'd be relief that the sort of the trade deadline's over. It's clear what happened, and that Steph of all people shouldn't be shaken at all. So I don't know. I thought everyone played all right until the fourth quarter. I think Utah scored 44 points in the fourth quarter, and I was just punching the couch because they were up 11, and I thought, okay, I thought with 2.5 minutes left, it's over. Those are the worst kind of losses, by the way, JD. I mean, I could deal with a blowout. I could deal if they lose at the buzzer or by 1 or 2. If they play really well all the way in, but those are the worst losses. I think that could be the new contender for the worst loss of the year.
I think it is. I think it is, Danny. I mean, given the opponent, given the time, and again, it's not like they were up 6, right? We've seen them lose 6-point leads in a minute. That happens. It's somebody hits a 3, you have a turnover, somebody gets a quick bucket. Those can go, but this was 11 with 3 minutes to go. And I hate the fact that it seemingly always starts with Steph or Draymond doing something or being a major part of the fact that it snowballs in the wrong direction.
I couldn't agree more. And it just angers me when they lose like that. As I said, I can deal with the blowouts. I can deal with a close loss, but that really is the worst. So, regarding the trade, I know you had a busy night. I want to thank Andrew for his service. I thought he was a really good pro with the Warriors. He was good for us. Obviously he had those personal issues, which is tough. I wish him well. Someone said that the team that gets the best player in a trade wins the trade. So I think we definitely came out ahead. I know Butler's had his issues, but I will say, just maybe not even to defend Butler, but just to balance it out. His situation sounded a bit like Clay, but Clay didn't say. He was just sort of whine, being moping and without coming out and saying it. But he obviously was really upset he didn't get the max contract, which was ridiculous. So I think. I also think that Riley is a pretty tough nut. He's a kind of a hard ass. So I don't know if maybe someone with a little more tact or diplomacy could handle it better. I'm convinced he could have been handled better. But Riley's, he's 82. He's a hard ass. Remember, he was the guy who would fine his players, I think, if they helped out an opposing team member off the floor. I don't know if you remember that, but I'm pretty sure it was Riley. So he's a tough nut. So my question for you, sir, is how does the money work now? Because I know Wiggy was making about 25 or so, and Slow-Mo was making 8 or 9, so that's 34, 35. And then there's, Waters is playing being paid the league minimum. So tell me if my math is close. So that's another maybe $2 million. So how does
I've got him here. I've got him here. So I'm going to run through it here. I did not do this part of it during the game because I got kind of caught up, and I ended up on with Larry on his show while the game was going on. So I was trying to keep at least a half eye to the game at hand. But as far as the money, so they sent out 13 with Schroeder. I'm just going to estimate. They ended up sending out 8.7 with Kyle Anderson. It ended up being 2.1 for Lindy Waters. And who am I leaving out? Oh, and Wiggins, obviously. 26.2. So they sent out exactly 50, it looks like, roughly. Exactly 50, and Jimmy Butler makes 48.7. So it looks like the Warriors, again, they could not take back more than they were giving out because they were up against the hard cap. So it looks like they're a little over $1 million on the plus side. They save a little over $1 million with everything that they did. They have a little more than $1 million in wiggle room to that hard cap with everything that they did, which can help them if they look to make another trade, as long as they don't go over that hard cap.
Okay.
Thanks, Danny.
Thank you so much.
Nope, appreciate it. I appreciate Danny checking in, chiming in, and allowing me to kind of go through that on the fly there. And feel free, Kyle, to double check my math on that. It was very, very quick, rough math, but I had a little over $1 million.
Yeah, I had 50.
Yeah, a little over $1 million when you look at Jimmy Butler's total salary at 48.7. So yeah, $1.2 million, $1.1 million, give or take a little bit, that the Warriors end up on the plus side of, which again, that's $1 million less that if you cobble, say, GP2 and his contract with Kevon Looney's, you'd have $1 million more wiggle room to be able to take somebody back if it's a Miles Turner potentially, or if it's a somebody like a Nikola Vucevic as we head toward tomorrow. 808 KNBR 415-808-5627. Got a couple of lines open here. Let's do we need to take a timeout, Kyle? We need to take a timeout, or we want to get Clement?
Well, let's get Clement.
Let's get Clement. Clement's been holding for a while. Clement in San Leandro next here on Dubs OT on the Sports Leader.
Hey, JD, how's it going? Love the show.
Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, you know what? As it stands now, I do like the trade. I've always been a Jimmy Butler fan. But what kind of soured me on the trade initially was that he was coming in with the intent not to sign an extension. And so that's why when the trade first happened this afternoon, I wasn't for it until we heard the news that he was going to sign the 2-year extension. So I'm happy that he was able, the Warriors were able to get that done. I would give this trade a straight B because the Warriors, they got somebody, a good player, and they didn't have to give up Jonathan Kuminga or Draymond Green. But I would have gave them an A if they would have got KD. But all in all,
yeah,
I do love the trade.
Okay.
And,
Clement, I got to ask you, would you have given him I got to ask you, because I think this is, and I may know your answer, I may not. If they had gotten KD, but Kuminga was in the deal instead of Anderson, would you have still given him an A for that? Because I think that's what it would have taken to do the KD part. Okay.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, don't get me wrong, I love JK, I do. But, you know, if they were to get KD, that would have set the whole trade over the top. You know, you got to give you got to give up some good young talent to get a star like KD. So I would have been more for that to give up JK.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think it makes, I mean, it clearly that was kind of the line was, hey, Jimmy's been through too much. He's too old with the suspensions and everything. Kuminga was not going to be in that deal, but KD, the better player, little bit younger, more steady, right? He would be somebody that you would have to include both Wiggins and JK for, probably going in different directions. It sounds as if Kuminga would have been going to Phoenix and Wiggins still would have been going to Miami had they ended up making that deal. And I think there were going to be some other things or other players involved in that deal, and other teams involved in that deal as well. But no, I just wanted to make sure we caught that point on it. So you're okay with the risk?
Oh yeah, I'm absolutely okay with this. Like I said, I've always been a Jimmy lover. You know, I like his game. I think he'll be more motivated now that he has gotten his contract. Maybe not really what he wanted as far as the years or the money, but I think this will motivate him to be good for the Warriors. And you know, hopefully we can make a push to the playoffs and not the play-in. And I also want to, you know, as the previous caller stated, I also want to give Wiggins his flowers, you know, because he was so good for us. Granted, he missed all that time, but I think this year he really played well for us. You know, he gave us a lot of minutes, scored a lot, and I just want to give Andrew Wiggins his flowers, and definitely going to miss him.
Yeah, that's a great that's a great call. And yeah, Wiggins, he's somebody, and Steve Kerr spoke to it, and I was going to mention in our Sounds at Dubs OT segment, just had a son within the last week, and obviously he lost his pops back before the season started, and had been away from the team at different points because his dad Mitchell Wiggins was sick and really going through it and trying to fight and battle. And so, that was a lot of what was going on, why Wiggins was in and out a lot. But yeah, that nobody can take away the 2022 playoff run, and really that whole season, but that 2022 playoff run with the offense and the defense and going up against some premier players in the league. And he was coming out on top against premier players in the league with his matchup, and helping the Warriors win that title. And it looked like he was getting his game back. I think going to Miami, believe it or not, is good for him, because they're gonna make sure that he's locked in every night. I think in Miami, like, you can't not do that. I mean, Jimmy Butler aside, you can't not do that and be a member of the Heat, unless you're a guy like Jimmy Butler. So I think Wiggins will be good, and he's not even 30 yet. I think he turns 30 in a couple of weeks. So. He's somebody that I think could go on and will go on to be a coveted player around the league, as somebody who can slash a little bit and hit the three ball, and is still a really good defender.
Right. One more point I wanted to make. I would like
to
see Golden State to make one more acquisition. I was just thinking maybe Kelly Olynyk or Vucevic, or what's the guy in Washington, the big man, Valanciunas.
Valanciunas went to Sacramento today. The Kings traded for.
Okay.
Yeah, that was early this afternoon before the Jimmy Butler stuff went down. A couple of hours, kind of mid-afternoon. Sacramento sent Siasko, the guy that they just got in the Fox trade from San Antonio, and a couple of picks for Valanciunas. So he's going to back up Sabonis in Sacramento. So he's off the board.
Okay. Yeah, well, I'd like them to go after Vucevic or Kelly Olynyk.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I think they have to make one more move. Miles Turner's another name that I think would be in their price range, although he's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. So he's somebody that you'd really want to look to re-sign as an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year, but somebody making in that $19 to $20 million range. Clement, thank you for the call. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, JD. Appreciate it.
All right, 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. Got a couple of lines open. The Golden State Lumber and Building Materials text line is open. We'll get into the YouTube chat next. There's already been another trade. There's been another trade here just since we've been on the air tonight. We will get into that and let you know what it is on the other side right here. It's Dubs OT with JD on the Sports Leader.
Dub Nation, this is the real and inside story on Warriors basketball. Dubs OT with John Dickinson continues. Streaming live at twitch.tv/thesportsleader.
Shot clock at 3. Butler with Brogdon on him. It's a long 3. And good! Jimmy freaking Butler puts it in. Shot clock running down. And it's the Butler who did it. Wow. Touches every inch of that rim.
Jimmy Butler coming back in trade. Warriors lose tonight to the Jazz. They blew an 11-point lead in the final 3 minutes at Utah. Almost indescribable, but the headline of the day is Jimmy Butler coming to the Warriors. Jimmy Butler, a big Shabuzi guy as well. Jimmy Butler coming to the Golden State Warriors, who is going out. Andrew Wiggins and Kyle Anderson to Miami. The Jazz get Dennis Schroeder. Lindy Waters III goes to the Detroit Pistons in that deal. The Warriors also sending a top 10 protected first-round pick in the 2025 draft, so this year's draft, to Miami. And again, if the Warriors are bad enough for that to be in the top 10, then the Warriors will keep it. It gets kicked to the next year. That via Anthony Slater, who had that note. Warriors 25-25. 50 games into the season. They will take on the Lakers in LA tomorrow. And the Lakers, we played the breaking news sounder before the break. Let's let everybody know what the Lakers have done here. And the Lakers they've made a trade, another one, as they pick up Charlotte Hornets big man, Mark Williams. Charlotte Hornets 7-footer, Mark Williams, is going to the Lakers. Lakers have been looking for a center and not really looking for the type of center that the Warriors have been looking for. Warriors are looking for a scoring center, stretch big, somebody that can shoot the 3 ball. Lakers are looking for a defensive-oriented center, but they get the guy that's been scoring a lot of late. Health been the issue, though. Mark Williams to the Lakers. Lakers, seems like they gave up a lot here. Dalton Connect is going from the Lakers to the Charlotte Hornets. He's been a productive player for him for them in his rookie year. Dalton Connect, and also a Cam Reddish and a 2031 unprotected first-round pick, plus a 2030 pick swap for the Hornets. Mark Williams, that's a lot for Mark Williams. I was looking at Mark Williams and his most recent games, and I think he's out due to an injury now, and health is the question as it relates to Mark Williams. But the last 10 games that Mark Williams has played in, he's averaging 20.3 points per game, 12.5 rebounds per game, and a block and a half per game. So the Lakers get a younger big man to throw into the mix, just 23 years old. Mark Williams, who went to Duke and will be in the mix as the Lakers look to continue their revamp. The Warriors are going to be looking at a revamp of their own as they make the trade for Jimmy Butler. We'll see what they do at the deadline. I maintain the Warriors still have another move to make at the deadline, and I would be focused on the contracts of Kevon Looney and Gary Payton II to potentially take back, plus some second-round draft capital to try and get another big or another guard, I think. Another big or another wing, I would say. Like either way, but I think they really are targeting a big that will help spread the floor a little bit for Jimmy Butler to be able to attack, and also if Jonathan Kuminga is going to be around, help stretch the floor and open things up for Jonathan Kuminga once he comes back. So 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. Let's dig into the YouTube chat here on this Wednesday night as we're going deep into the night here. Thoughts on the game if you want, thoughts on the trade and what the Warriors still are going to look to do. Alpha chiming in on the game early, another bad collapse. Hopefully Butler can help the team hold on to some of these leads. Yeah, it's just, mind-boggling. It just AB, Butler would have ended the Jazz run if he played tonight. That's the belief. That's the belief. Let's ride. Utah did not have any stars. Yeah, Utah didn't have anybody tonight either. I mentioned the Warriors being a little shorthanded and shook. No excuse. I do think it was part of the equation early, but they completely flipped the game. They were down 17-4. They were up 11. I mean, they basically led for 42 minutes of the game by they were winning the game by 20 for 42 minutes of the game, but then lost it in the first 3 minutes and the last 3 minutes. I mean, no excuses. Awful, awful game considering the opponent and the opponent that had guys out. Rusty Nail, I remember a few years ago when the Warriors would win all these close games, just not overtime games. Remember the Warriors had that long streak where they would lose basically every overtime game, even when they were winning and contending for championships at that point. But yeah, a lot to get into tonight. As the should the Warriors be done? What are your thoughts on the Butler move? Enrique Rivera, how much did we rent Butler for, and for how long? Well, I would say at least the rest of this year and next year. I think at a minimum. Now they did give him the 2-year contract extension, which takes him through 2026-27. So he is now aligned with Steph. He's aligned with Draymond. And I think you've got the rest of this year to figure out kind of how it's going to work. Try to get into the playoffs, whether it's via the play-in or trying to make a run down the stretch here post All-Star break portion of the schedule to get to the 6th seed. Tonight is just an absolute, just a crushing loss in that, especially when you look around the league. And Sacramento got beat tonight at home against Orlando. They unveiled their new look squad with Zach LaVine. They didn't have Valanciunas yet, but Zach LaVine played, and they gave up 130 points to the Magic tonight. The Magic. That's right. The Magic that you just saw play the Warriors the other night in San Francisco. And that's the one thing, as much as I like what the Kings did in a very difficult situation. And I think, and you've heard me say it, those of you that have followed me either on social media or here, they had to move on from Fox, but they're not going to be a great defensive team. And I'm interested to see if they maybe make yet another move to try and improve some of the defense, but they're kind of spent when like Monk has to play and LaVine has to play and DeRozan has to play. Keegan Murray's probably their best defender. Actually, not probably. He's their best defender among their starters. Reason I brought the Kings up was they got beat tonight. And, tonight's a night where you win. If you're the Warriors, you're 2 over. You move ahead of the Kings in the standings. And now you're tied with them at 25-25, and you still have 2 matchups to go against them, but you've lost the first 2. So I think as it lays out for the Warriors, you look to try to get into the playoffs, but you're also looking to try and see what you need to revamp the roster. Warriors right now tied with the Suns and the Kings, 9-10-11, 8-9-10 and 11. Dallas, Sacramento, Phoenix, Golden State, and there's a half game. The Mavs are 26-20. The Warriors would be 8th if they had won tonight. The Warriors would have moved from 11th to 8th had they won tonight, with the Suns getting blown out in Oklahoma City, with Dallas continuing to struggle. They've dropped their last 3, and Sacramento losing at home to Orlando tonight. Warriors win this game, they'd be 8th. That's how fragile it is. 8th with momentum, and Jimmy Butler coming probably Saturday in Chicago, and then it's on. But the Warriors unable to win this game. But as far as Jimmy and bringing it back to the chat, you kind of figure out what it's going to look like between now and the end of the year. And how, let's see, you got 30 games basically by the time Jimmy gets here. And you look and you see how it looks, and then you've got a full off season to build it around Steph and Jimmy and Draymond, and you got a decision on Kuminga, and you're going to obviously bring in some different role players, and I think the Warriors will be aggressive in an attempt to try and build a contender this offseason. If it doesn't work next season and it's catastrophic, you can always trade Jimmy Butler's expiring contract somewhere in 26-27. So that is a back pocket move. So you basically are testing this thing out, I believe, for the next year and a half. By the way, Our buddy Austin Scott passes this along via text. How bad was the Warriors' loss tonight? 122-111 with 2:55 to go. This via @automatic NBA. Teams up 11 with 2 to 3 minutes left. We're 232-0 since the start of last season before tonight. Teams up 11 with 2 to 3 minutes left, 232-0. And the Warriors are now the one in 233 games. That's how disgraceful this loss was for the Warriors. But yeah, I think you're renting Butler for a year and a half, and if it's a flame out, you've got enough flexibility to look to trade him in the final year of his deal somewhere else. Rebel DeSounds, the late turnover from Steph was crazy. Joe Schmo, if Pods and Hield can play like this, yeah, they wasted a really good Buddy Hield game. First time all year the Warriors lost when Buddy Hield had 18 or more. They were 10-0 in games where Buddy Hield scored 18 or more. No longer. Yeah, Buddy Hield with a couple of big games. Remember, he had the huge game at Delta Center in Utah, the second game of the year back in late October. And he had another really strong game tonight. I don't know that you're getting this from Buddy Hield, although I think a little bit of the pressure will be off playing with Jimmy Butler to where he can just kind of stand and shoot more. And that's probably good for the Warriors and for Buddy. But, man, Buddy Hield's also, I think, probably a frustrating player for Jimmy Butler at times. So, but having guys like that, I think, force others to lock in. And so we'll see. But I agree with you, Joe Schmo, on Pods. If Pods can play like this, Moody, I think, is more playable now. Really, the only guy that, at shocker, people are gonna go crazy. I don't think this is desperation. Rebel DeSounds, desperate knee-jerk reaction. The one guy that I'm most curious about the fit is Kuminga. Shockingly. I know a lot of people are like, I just don't. I don't see how they play together, and that doesn't mean they can't be on the roster. And I could be wrong, and I think a stretch big would help alleviate some of it. But we saw at times that Kuminga and Wiggins couldn't play together, and Wiggins is a deferential player. But I think Moody is a backup three where he's going to get the ball kicked out to him by Jimmy Butler. I think him as that guy that doesn't have to create and make plays as much, I think it helps him. I think it helps Buddy Hield. I think Podziemski coming on has been huge of late. Mickey D, two late 35-plus guys making $60 million apiece. That's a fact. Again, I didn't say there wasn't a risk involved. DVDV. Or Paul, let's get Paul's. Yeah, I like Paul's here. Draymond and Butler dynamic going to be interesting. Yes, it is. The one thing I'll say about that, I do think when you look, Draymond typically gets along with the other guys that you'd think maybe he wouldn't get along with. He got along with DeMarcus Cousins fine. Who else have the Warriors had? The Warriors haven't had a lot of other combative personalities, but he tends to like those guys, I feel like, as opposed to it's other guys that he doesn't like, but not that person. He tends to like the guys who have the same type of personality that he does is what I'm getting at. So that's a good one. The Warriors just, choked it away. Enrique Dunleavy smoked the deadline. Warriors got fleeced? Rebel? I don't think the Warriors got fleeced. Robert, I don't know how anyone could be pissed with the move personally. Yeah, I find it hard to believe. Again, you didn't give up any of your future. You didn't give up Kuminga. You didn't give up Moody. You didn't give up Podziemski. You didn't give up Trace Jackson-Davis. You gave up a first-round pick that you really didn't want anyway. Weren't going to bring in another guy in the teens. And Wiggins had to go in the deal to make the salaries work. So really, the only thing of Kyle Anderson wasn't playing. Lindy Waters, I think, is a good 10 to 15 man on an NBA roster. But I think as you look at the rest of it, I mean, they didn't give up a lot. And again, I think the Warriors will have the opportunity, if it doesn't work out after a year and a half, to be able to move on. Yeah, Brandon Ingram did go to the Raptors. Mentioned that trade. I don't think we mentioned the full trade there. I probably should mention the full trade there. That happened as we hit the airwaves. I think we referenced the fact that Ingram was going to the Raptors, but I don't think we gave the full trade. So let me go back and give the full trade. Pelicans have traded Ingram to the Raptors for Bruce Brown, Kelly Olynyk, a first-round pick, and a second-rounder. And Ingram's going to be a free agent at the end of this year, as is Bruce Brown. So I'm interested, do the Pelicans just keep Bruce Brown? Do the Pelicans look to move Bruce Brown and Olynyk? I mean, I feel like Bruce Brown and Olynyk could be going somewhere between now and the deadline. Bruce Brown would be great for the Warriors. Joe Schmo. Another thing the Warriors wasted tonight, Joe Schmo points out, Spencer putting face on Walker Kessler. Man, so many things in this game. So many things in this game. No cap 757. Zach LaVine was the best fit. Spacing is going to be terrible. They need more shooting. Again, Mike Dunleavy should not be done. And regulator, Jimmy's a dog. Dre won't mess with him. Enter the Draymond, not excited about Butler. Joe Schmo, Jimmy would have helped us tonight. LM, can the Dubs sign Kuminga to $30 million per year and still keep Curry, Dre, and Butler? They can. They would just have to go into a potentially different cap level. They're not, and they would have to, and if they put themselves in a position where they're hard capped, then there are things that make you hard capped, and we don't need to spend time on it tonight, but there are moves you can make to become a hard cap team. And if you become a hard cap team, then you would have to maybe trade some other player. This happened with the Warriors did the D'Lo trade back in the Durant sign and trade to get D'Lo. They became a hard cap team, which meant they could no longer afford Iguodala. And so they ended up having to trade Iguodala to Memphis and attach a pick to that. And it was the pick from this past year. Attach a pick to that to move on from Andre Iguodala. Gene, Butler doesn't move the needle. Butler moves the needle. Butler moves the needle. There's no question Butler moves the needle. All right, let's continue on the phone lines. Danny in South Lake Tahoe tonight here on Dubs OT on the Sports Leader. Hey, Danny.
How you doing?
I'm doing well tonight. What's on your mind?
Well, I'm a longtime Warrior fan. I go back to when they had Charles Johnson from Cal and Phil Smith from USF, and they were champs back then when they shouldn't have been. So I've been a Warrior fan my whole life. I am not a fan of this trade at all. I'm surprised to hear all these people that think it's such a great idea. Jimmy Butler spells his name with too many I's for me. He's a ball hog. He's not a good teammate. He does make some clutch shots, but you gave away 3 of only 5 good ball handlers we have on our team to get there. And Steph is better off when he's not handling the ball. That way he can move around and get open for shots. And he could do that, with a guy like Waters and with Anderson. Now we just don't have the ball handlers, and I think it showed tonight in that game that we just don't have ball handlers now. More than a big guy, I think we need somebody who can be the point guard, handle the ball, and allow Steph to be the guy that gets the majority of the points.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they look for another guard tomorrow in addition to a big. And again, I don't think they necessarily have to be limited to one player. There's a lot of different things they can look to do. Again, I don't think they're looking to move Pajemski, especially as well as he's been playing. He's somebody that obviously can handle the ball. I don't think they want to move Moody. I think he plays well. They've been reluctant to move Kuminga. And I think they were, again, not giving Kuminga up in a deal for a guy that's been a star like Jimmy Butler was a positive, because they still have him to either develop or to cash in at some point down the line. But I would not be surprised if they look, with now Schroeder gone, to bring in some kind of veteran handler. But I also think Butler's going to be handling the ball a lot in these games, and he's going to be that playmaker that's going to be doing some of the creating for others and allowing Steph to play off the ball. It can get a little clunky. The spacing can get weird. And that's where I think you have to have the appropriate amount of shooting. And we'll see what the Warriors can do here in the next, 14 hours. But I still have the belief, and thank you for the call, Danny, that this is worth the risk. It's not a panacea. It's not a no-brainer in terms of the fact that it's going to work. But I do think it's a no-brainer in terms of looking to attempt it. And that doesn't mean that I believe that the Warriors are a contender now. You don't have to be a contender right this second. This is the first step to be able to become a contender.
I just worry that Jimmy Butler is kind of a ball hog. I don't know how he's going to fit in with a team that likes to pass. Jimmy Butler likes to create. He likes to get the ball, get out of my way. I'm going to go one-on-one.
He does.
Create a shot. And that's not the way the Warriors have never had a player like that except for Kuminga. So I just don't know how it's going to fit. And that's what bothers me, because Wiggins was the ultimate team player. Tough to lose him. I understand the salary deal. Totally get that. But just from the sake of watching a game when the Warriors' ball is moving and they play well, they are fun to watch. Jimmy Butler reminds me too much of the guys at Houston when they had, Harden and all the guys that were going on one. That's my worry.
Yeah, he is definitely that type of player. There's no question about it. And I think the Warriors are going to have to adjust to it. They're going to have to balance it. They're going to have to build this roster a little bit differently. They're going to have to play, I think, a little bit differently. But I think that's the bigger. Danny, thank you for the call. Appreciate it tonight. 808 KNBR. I think that's also the bigger statement that's being made here by the Warriors, is the fact that, and you saw it a little bit with Schroeder, who ends up going in this deal to get Jimmy Butler. But I think part of it is the Warriors are saying, damn it, what's gone on these last 3 years isn't good enough. And so we're going to take a swing to try and have it be better. But they're saying that the way they've played and the status quo and the being afraid to bring somebody in that's got some baggage, like, those days are over. Sorry. And I think it doesn't matter how nice, how many good guys you have and likable players. And, Steve Kerr is extremely humble, and he's got a lot of humility to him and compassion, and understands the tough part of the game. To see a guy like Schroeder get moved again, to see, Kyle Anderson, who was brought in as somebody that the Warriors really thought could help them, and Wiggins, who's been a big part of a championship team, to see those guys go that just had a son born within the last week. And, it hurts. It hurts for those guys to move on. But I think the Warriors said, when you're 25-25, the status quo doesn't do it anymore. The Warriors stood pat last year. And what did it get them? It got them getting run out of the freaking gym at Golden One Center. And it got them a 6-month off season for the first time in 4 years. So you got to look at all of that and take it all into account. And again, this is the one big move, but I just don't really see the downside in terms of what the Warriors gave up. There's downside in that it might not work, and you got to change the way you build the roster. But I don't think you gave up anything or anyone that you're going to go, oh man, like that is a surefire miss. You'd love to have I'd love to have Wiggins on this team if I'm the Warriors and Jimmy Butler. But the way the salaries and everything are structured wouldn't happen. Mark in San Francisco next here on the Sports Leader. Hey, Mark.
Hey, John, you hit it on the head. We didn't give up any of our young players. And to me, that was real important. Giving up a draft pick, well, I like having draft picks, but so be it. But I think that's the key here. We didn't give up any of our young players, and we'll take a risk with this. We're making a move, and we'll see if it works. But I was going to say that Brogdon Bogdanovic, he's a good player, and I see he's on the block. Somebody like that would really help the Warriors.
Yeah, I like Bogdanovic. I like Bogdanovic of the Hawks now. From Serbia, originally was with the Kings. I think he was picked by Phoenix, but went to the Kings in a trade, and has been with Atlanta. Yeah, he's a nice two guard that can handle it a little bit, kind of a combo guard, can shoot it a little bit. 32 years old. He's somebody that a lot of people think is going to be moved here in the next 14 hours now as we get closer to the deadline. That's not a bad name. I think the Warriors are prioritizing a big that can shoot, but I also think with Schroeder gone, as I've been talking about, they need another guard that they can throw into the mix. So the emergence of Podziemski is certainly a helpful one along those lines. But yeah, you gave up Wiggins, who you had to, and you still have Kuminga and Moody and Podziemski, and you didn't mortgage the future, Mark. That's for all the talk about not going to mortgage the future, one pick in 2025 when they're going to be all in, this year to try and go as far as they can, isn't mortgaging the future.
I also wanted to give you a compliment. You said something on Larry's show that I agree with. You said Higgins and Warren, the tight end from Penn State.
Okay.
Boy, those would be two great additions.
Oh, yeah, that would be – yeah, if you could get T. Higgins, man, if you could get both those guys and Warren, I mean, look out. You're talking – the Niners might score 40 points a game if they do that, Mark. I mean,
that was great, John. And you know what? We wouldn't have any red zone problems if we had those two guys.
No, jeez. Somebody would be open. Not everybody, but somebody would be open. And
with the IU kind of, we don't know how he's going to respond to his injury. I think getting Higgins would definitely give us insurance on that.
And I say this last one kidding, but go get Myles Garrett while you can too, right? Right, Mark?
Yeah, as long as you don't give up the future, yeah. We need an offensive line. We need some draft picks.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate you, man. Yeah, I appreciate you listening to our JD I'm a Larry. That's one of my favorite segments of the week when I get to chop it up with Larry. Larry always hits me. It's funny as you listen to KNBR 104.5 FM and 680 AM, San Francisco, the sports leader, into the 10 o'clock hour here. Dubs OT with JD. Warriors lose to the Jazz, but they acquire Jimmy Butler. So a lot to talk about here on this Wednesday night. And the Warriors and Lakers tomorrow down from Southern California. I'll be on hand for that one in person. And we'll have Dubs OT from Los Angeles tomorrow as well. So really looking forward to that. I think tomorrow's going to be a Greg Silver night. And then we'll see what happens as far as Jimmy Butler's debut, Kyle. But could be a possible another trip maybe in the works here shortly. Well, we shall see. We shall see. Still some things that need to be finalized on that front. But yeah, Larry will always text me, and usually Monday, Tuesday, usually Monday, and say, yeah, JD, what's a good night this week to come on Niners Nightly? And it'll be, yeah, all right, Warriors are playing Tuesday, Wednesday. And I was kind of he didn't text me this week. On Monday, I'm thinking, okay, well, it's probably going to have to be Friday. He must have a bunch of stuff planned. It's Super Bowl week. I'll probably come on Friday. That's when the Warriors are not playing, right? And then this news breaks, and it was just too good. This ended up being my Niners night. My Niners Nightly night ended up being Warrior trade night. We were on during the game. It was great. It was a lot of fun. Appreciate Larry for having me on during that hour, and a great job by him to pivot with the breaking news of the evening. All right, one more here, and then let's go Chuck and Rockridge. Want to get his thoughts, and then we'll get a quick timeout. We'll get Mike in on the other side, as well as some sounds of Dubs OT. What's going on tonight, Chuck?
Hey, JD, I am so upset that the Warriors didn't pull off the perfect trade, getting rid of everybody getting everybody back. It's so outrageous. Like, I don't know. It's just all these people I'm hearing, not just from this station, from everybody, is like upset that Butler's coming in. Like, the Warriors had to do something. Like, Feel Good Wiggins is great and everything, but they had to do something. And just, it's a little, thanks for giving me the opportunity to vent about
Sure.
a meandering, muttering Warriors team that wasn't going anywhere, and you have to change because everybody's changing, and you have to do it or you're going to be stuck. And that's my 2 cents on it. And also, like, the 2-year extension, it just looks like more options to get rid of Butler and bring something else in the future. But nobody wants to hear about the future because Steph Curry's apparently aging every day. 10 years go by for some reason for Steph Curry. We have to take advantage of him now so quickly. I don't understand why we can't play out the rest of this year with Jimmy and see how it goes. The roster on paper, not going to win a championship. I agree with that. But there's 12, 13, 17 hours left in this deadline or something. And we have the off season too. All right, JD, great show as always. Thanks.
No, I appreciate it, Chuck. Look, do what you can. I don't think you should let the Looney and GP2 contracts just expire, which you basically would do if you don't trade them tomorrow. And you look for a stretch big and you look for a guard. And you see how far this team can get this year. Nobody's expecting them to win a title this year. And here's the other thing I will say to people that are complaining about it, and everybody's entitled to their opinion. That's fine. And this is not a deal without risk. But would you rather – Kevin Durant wasn't coming. They didn't give up any of the young players. Like, did you want to watch – and no offense to Andrew Wiggins, who I was a bigger Andrew Wiggins guy than a lot of people were. I liked Kyle Anderson, had a chance to sit down with him in Hawaii and do an interview with him. I thought he was a really, really good dude, a pro's pro. You know, a guy that I think will do well with Miami, although I think he was going to end up in Toronto. But if he ends up with Miami or goes elsewhere, I think he can help a lot of teams in the league. And, you know, Lindy Waters is, like I said, he's a guy that probably has a career as a back-end bench player on a team. Again, no offense to anybody that was sent out or might get sent out in the next 14 hours. But did you really want to watch this team again? Did you really want to watch this team for 2 more months? Did you really want to watch this team for 2 more months? Win one, lose one, lose one, win one, win one, lose one, lose one, lose one, win one, win one, lose one, win one, lose one, win one. Look like you're going to be 2 over, blow an 11-point lead against one of the worst teams in the NBA and back to 500 again. Like, did you really want to watch the same thing for 2 more months? I think there's a watchability component to this. There's an energy that comes with it. Again, it's a roll of the dice, but I don't think there's anything the Warriors did in making this deal that prevents them from some other move down the line. Like, they've got picks. They've got post-Curry picks. Kuminga could still become something. Like, it just, Moses Moody signed. Pajemski's played great since coming back from the injury. I'm not going to call it 2 timelines, but I mean, there is a little more of a balance to it, but you still need to add another player or 2. And I think the Looney contract and the GP2 contract are 2 to keep an eye on. And I wonder about Kuminga. Is there a player out there that the Warriors would look at if they sent maybe Looney, or a couple of players, if they sent Looney, GP2, and Kuminga out? You get yourself a $25 million player there with what's going out there. Now, you might have to attach another pick to that, and I don't think the Warriors necessarily want to do that. So they get the first part done. You see how this does, and then you move on. All right, I said I was going to pause. Let's get Mike in San Francisco, and then we'll take a break. We'll get sounds of Dubs OT. We'll finish up with the YouTube chat, and we'll call it a night before heading down to Los Angeles for the Warriors and the Lakers tomorrow. What's going on, Mike?
Hey, John, how you doing?
I'm doing well, man. What's up?
All right. Taken from 2 calls earlier, and just from what you were saying there, first. Uh, as far as Andrew Wiggins goes, I had him as the first pick in the draft a long time ago. And as far as Kyle Anderson goes, I had him as not wanted on my team. But if Bogdan Bogdanovic was drafted by the Suns, as you said, I can't remember. I can see it. Reason being, Phoenix hired his Serbian coach to entice Luka to play there when they didn't draft him. Bogdan is Shrewdness Marshallonis in a nutshell. Watched him play against Luka in 2017 Eurobasket Finals.
Okay.
Got another thing, but yeah, if you want to talk about that, we could talk about that.
Go ahead. I've always been a fan of Bogdan Bogdanovic since he's been in the league, and you go back farther, and that's some good knowledge there. But no, go ahead. I'll let you continue.
For Bogdan, I kind of saw him as a knight in shining armor on the court in that game. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
But he was playing Goran Dragic, the dragon, you know. So
Sure.
So far as Jimmy Butler goes, I've never said it, but Draymond's team I've always believed in. Not just defense, but let's get ready to rumble. John, I need to take away what you feel about this or this question. Two guard or center is a playoff situational question. So what's it to you? I believe in grimy Golden State rules basketball right now.
Well, they've got a lot of grit and grind now. Thank you for the call. I really appreciate it. Thank you for the Bogdan Bogdanovic info as well. And I'll let you comment I'll let you hear the comments on the radio or on YouTube or however you're listening here tonight. And then we'll take a quick timeout. I think in a perfect world, you need both. I don't know that you can get both. I think the guard is somebody that's probably more playable in the 16 game scenario as opposed to the 82 game scenario. But that's penciling in Moses Moody as a backup wing. That's penciling in Kuminga as a backup wing. I think an offensive-oriented center is not necessarily somebody that's going to be a playoff finishing player, but he's a guy that you need to be able to survive in the regular season, especially if you're going to be playing Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green together. Like if you're going to play those two together and maybe even Kuminga too, you got to have shooting. You got to have shooting. And so I think shooting is, whether it's a big or another position, that's what the Warriors have to figure out a way to come up with here in these next 13 hours and 56 minutes. All right, let's take a timeout. Final segment straight ahead. We'll do a quick edition of Sounds of Dubs OT, another scan of the YouTube chat, and a couple of text messages from the Golden State Lumber and Building Materials text line. Warriors lose to the Jazz. That's right. Blew a 11-point lead in the final 3 minutes. But they're getting Jimmy Butler. And we're talking about it here on the Sports Leader.
KNBR presents the sounds of Dubs OT.
I can see the headline now. Kerr says Warriors better without Curry.
No class, no ball. I want
to get my joy back. I'm happy here, off the court.
Now here's John Dickinson.
Well, the question is, Jimmy Butler going to be happy on the court coming to the Bay, and Butler's going to have his first opportunity to play with the Warriors. I'm going to guess Saturday in Chicago as the Warriors trip will continue. Not going to be home for a while. The next home game for the Warriors is 2 weeks from this coming Sunday. The Sunday after the All-Star game is the Warriors' next home game. It's an afternoon game. How about this for a Jimmy Butler home debut? Against the Mavericks and Klay Thompson, ABC Sunday afternoon showcase game, and it's Andre Iguodala's jersey retirement post game. How about that for added intrigue and watchability and additional storyline? It feels almost like the Warriors have flipped the clock back 6 years in terms of drama and stuff going on, and Chase Center or Oracle is a place to be. Feels like the Warriors kind of set things back a little bit at that point. But yeah, the Warriors in LA tomorrow, Chicago Saturday, Milwaukee. So Jimmy played at Marquette, right? Played for the Bulls. So it's like a little Jimmy Butler tour. Then to Dallas and Houston, then the All-Star break. And then the first game, Jimmy Butler's going to play in Sacramento before he plays at Chase Center. The first game out of the break is in Sacramento 2 weeks from Friday on the 21st. And then home for a couple, and then the Warriors are going right back out on the road. And, oh, by the way, the Warriors have not played in Miami yet. The Warriors play in Miami on March 25th. So Jimmy Butler will have a Miami return on what will be one of really 3 long road trips. The Warriors just beginning the first one tonight in Salt Lake City, but they've got 3 doozies, one there at the end of February, beginning of March, and then another one end of March, early April, in addition to the games that are left on this one. All right, let's get to Sounds of Dubs OT. Let's get a couple from Steve Kerr. Now, Steve Kerr could not talk about the deal post-game because it is not yet official. It is agreed to, but not official, and Kerr cannot talk about it until it becomes official. So we'll have all of that for you tomorrow when Steve talks at 5:30 from Crypto.com Arena in Los Angeles. So we'll make sure to get a lot of that out on our socials. That'll be his first reaction to the trade. Here's what Steve had to say in terms of the deadline overall. And he didn't love the situation that they were in with guys getting traded an hour before the game.
I think the league should consider making the trade deadline at the All-Star break, just so you don't have to face these games where guys are getting traded half an hour before and a game, and, you're trying to process the emotions and trying to win a game. I don't know if it's possible, but it'd be great if we could move it back to or make the last couple of days before the deadline, like off day. I don't know how to do it, but these are tough days for sure.
Well, the trade deadline being February 6th and before the All-Star break is already a reaction to the players being upset that the trade deadline took place either right before or right after the All-Star, basically after the All-Star break is when they had it. And if you remember, DeMarcus Cousins got traded from Sacramento during the All-Star game because he got traded in New Orleans. He got traded from Sacramento to New Orleans. Buddy Hield was a part of that deal going back the other way from New Orleans to Sacramento. And so the league and the players basically were like, yeah, we don't want to get traded during our All-Star break. So the league moved it up. So now you got players getting traded an hour before a game. I mean, it happens. I think there probably should be some window of time before a team plays to when a deal cannot go down. I think that could be one potential solution. Maybe if you're playing a game at 7:00, maybe there can't be a trade after like 4. Usually guys get to the arena between 4 and 5. So if something's going to go down there, you get an opportunity to do an early huddle up. But yeah, I think, they've already kind of moved it once. So I don't think guys are going to like their vacations or their all-star experiences ruined either. All right, another one from Kerr on the difficulty, and this is some of that compassion that Steve Kerr consistently shows. And so he addressed the difficulty in saying goodbye to guys who have really helped the Warriors win titles over the years, as is the case with Andrew Wiggins.
These relationships with guys, and they give you everything and commit to the team, and they've got families. Wiggs just had a baby boy last week. Girls in school. Wiggs is one of my favorite players I've ever coached. Just a beautiful soul, just a wonderful human being, and we don't hang that banner in 22 without him. Everything he brings every single day, the laughter, the smile, the joy, just a wonderful human being. And so I'm going to miss him, and the other guys too. I mean, Kyle is just the ultimate pro. He's one of the best professionals I've ever been around. Dennis we bring in here, another pro, total pro competitor we bring in here with the idea that, we're gonna have him for a while. And, he moves his family and kids, everything. They just moved into a house last week. Lindy just getting his career started. He's been great to coach, wonderful young guy. So it's hard, but this is the business. We know that. We talk about it, periodically. And so we, everyone moves on, and you say your goodbyes, and that's hard.
All right, before we hear from Steph Curry, I want to just address that, and I think that is that's difficult. There's no doubt, no quibbling with what Steve is saying about any of that. I think the Warriors' ability to pick up the pieces here emotionally and move forward, because I do think they were in need of, on a nightly basis, a little bit of a kick in the ass, to be perfectly honest. And so to be able to do that, you're going to have to make sure that everybody's bought in on this thing. And I was just kind of thinking about it during the break. I mean, this as divided as I think the fan base is on this trade, whether it's good, whether it's bad, it's not the magic pill option, but I do think it's an option that gives you a chance. And as I like to say often, better than the alternative. But Steve better be into it. Steve better buy into it. And Steph better be on board with it. And Draymond better be on board with it, because those are the guys who are going to set the tone and lead and have this thing, have a shot to be successful. And again, Wiggins is a good dude. I'm a big Andrew Wiggins guy, more than a lot of folks, but I think this team needed an infusion. And there were very few. Look, there were more players I would have traded Kuminga for than I would have traded Wiggins for. I think when you look at the salary structure and everything, this team needed a boost, and Jimmy Butler is, now that you got him signed to the contract extension, is one of the guys you'd be willing to give up Wiggins for. Let's move on to Stephen Curry here on our Sounds of Dubs OT. We're going to play a few cuts here. We'll try to get through them quickly. Curry first addressed the guys that are leaving the Warriors, and he started with Andrew Wiggins in particular.
When you around this league long enough, you see a lot. That was, and even so, that was a new situation for sure, just because, all the talks that were going on in the last week. And until, front office pulls the trigger, you don't necessarily believe anything's going to really happen. And especially with the guys that were part of the deal. I'm glad the way we did it, looking back, to have that moment with our team in the locker room and just us talking, for Wiggs. Especially, the amount of time he's been here, what he meant to our team and our franchise to help us climb the mountaintop again back in 22. He changed a lot for us for the better, and I hope his experience with us, changed a lot for him as well. And, he's got a lot of basketball left in him, obviously. And for, Kyle, Dennis, and Lindy, who were newcomers, they committed to the mission. They were all ultimate professionals, showed up every day, worked like they were supposed to. And, it was a uncomfortable situation all the way around. Trying to figure out what our team was going to be like down the stretch of the trade deadline. So I just appreciate everything that they did for us. And it was tough to go play, obviously, but we got to be professional ourselves and go out and try to win a game. But didn't work out for us.
Yeah, the Warriors got off to the bad start, so and then obviously the horrendous finish. They end up losing the game by 3 to the Jazz. That's Steph on the guys who are leaving. Steph did address the guy who is coming in Jimmy Butler and what he's excited about Jimmy bringing to the mix.
We know who Jimmy is. We've been in 2 finals. He's a winner. I understand there's a lot of drama down there, and who really knows what the story is. We expect to have a motivated, committed, Jimmy that's ready to impact our team for the better. Got to work out the kinks of what it looks like, and I'm excited to get to work and kind of feed off the energy of something new and somebody that's obviously had experience at the highest of levels, has a lot to prove, in a new situation, and we're going to try to help each other do that. Yeah, I text him at halftime. Normal, just excited to get things going, start the conversation because hit the ground running. I don't know when we'll see him in person, but excited to get it started.
All right, so Steph Curry there, excited to feed off the energy. Said a little text exchange with Jimmy Butler, so that's good. There's a lot to figure out in a short period of time. Obviously, Butler won't be with the Warriors to play the Lakers tomorrow night. Could be Chicago. If it's Chicago, that's 31 games, so a lot to figure out in a short period of time. Steph addressed that aspect of this move.
It'll look different than what we're used to. I mean, he can play, I'm sure, a little bit of motion, but he's a shot creator, a finisher, somebody that you have to take into account no matter where he's on the floor. He plays at his own speed. He can get to the foul line, take advantage of matchups. So we got to be smart, high IQ basketball to figure it out on the fly. But he's obviously a competitor at the highest of levels, and being able to work off each other. I'm excited to see what it looks like. I'm gonna watch a lot of whenever it's time to watch a lot of Miami film to understand some of the sets that they like to run for him, and see what we can kind of transition to our playbook. And we want to give him free rein to give us some insight on what he's comfortable with and make those adjustments. But we all got to be ourselves too.
And look, I think this is another scenario where being a little bit uncomfortable is probably something that's necessary for the Warriors, because they've gotten a little too comfortable in the way that they've operated these last couple of years without enough success. That's why you lead to being in this position to where you make a move like this, where you're kind of pushing your chips in terms of, again, not what you're giving up for the future, but just how much of an impact it can have, not only in the short term, but really, I think this is a year and a half kind of a deal. What can you make of the remainder of this season? And then it really sets up next year, 2025, 2026, to be the all-in, try to make a deep run kind of a year. And we've seen other teams in these positions not be able to do it. I mean, look at the Suns. The Suns have tried to do that, have been a play-in team. The Lakers have tried to do it since they won in the bubble in 2020. And even with LeBron and Anthony Davis, they haven't been able to do it. And so, these teams, as they start to age, have really struggled. Can the Warriors come up with enough of the youth and age balance and the right complementary types of players to make it work? The drama is a big conversation. We're going to play a couple of more Steph here. Drama. Is it going to be a drama-free environment? Jimmy Butler he is a dog. He will bring it. He is intense. He will mix it up with the opponent. He will mix it up occasionally with his teammates. Can the Warriors get him acclimated in a drama-free environment? Here's Steph.
Like I said, I don't know much about the behind-the-scenes stuff that got them there. That's for their organization to kind of talk about. But I can put myself in his shoes in a sense of he's been away from the game for a minute. He's been frustrated for whatever reason. And when you get into a situation that's a fresh start, again, it establishes expectations that we're all used to, that we need to win. And I think we all thrive off of that energy. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Doesn't mean there's going to be challenges. Obviously him signing an extension is big, knowing he's committed for this next little run, and we got to figure it out.
Yeah, and again, you look at the extension that he signed. I think that was, to me, there's no deal if there's no extension. There's no way the Warriors give up even Wiggins for somebody that can opt out or may not be committed, or you'd have to end up suspending or something like that here between now and the end of the year. So Jimmy's going to get paid, and that means Jimmy's going to have to be happy at least for the remainder of this year and next year. And Jimmy Butler does seem to be the kind of player that can flip that switch. When he's happy, he's engaged, and he's just a terror on the court in the best way. And when he's not, he can flip the switch and turn into somebody who's quit on multiple teams. He's a volatile player, but that energy, I think, does create the expectations that Steph Curry's talking about, and Steph weighed in a little bit more on that.
I've had the last 3 hours to kind of think about it while you're playing a game, but I think that the biggest thing is just it creates expectations, which I love. I want to be in that kind of environment, whether you get it done or not. That is meaningful basketball that we all love and thrive in. So I think we're all going to be up for the challenge.
All right, final one from Steph. Actually, no, that is our last one from Steph. And so a lot to chew on here as everybody kind of gets it adjusted and reacclimated here. And again, I think people should look at it not in terms of, oh, Jimmy Butler's coming in, this team's a contender. We'll see what they do between now and noon tomorrow and how close they can get to that. And maybe they don't. Maybe they're still a play-in team that gets beat. But you don't make this move in an attempt to be a play-in team that gets beat next year. And so I think that pressure and expectation and being a little bit uncomfortable, again, I think is important. I think that's important. The Warriors needed to get comfortable being a little bit more uncomfortable. And I think that's Steph. I think that's Draymond to a lesser extent. And I think it's Steve. I think it's Steph and Steve. Got to get comfortable being a little bit more uncomfortable. And we'll see what more moves are made here. All right, let's get our fun with numbers, and we will call it a night before we reconvene from Southern California tomorrow. Woo! Busy couple of days here, but the Warriors making some major headlines. Here's fun with numbers.
This is Dubs OT with JD. Time now for fun.
I'm a fun guy.
With numbers.
No, I'm just having fun.
On KNBR 104.5 and 680. Streaming live on KNBR.com and the KNBR app.
All right, brutal loss. Warriors trailed 17-4 early and then had an 11-point lead with 2:55 to go. Jazz outscore the Warriors 20-6 to win it 131-128. Warriors blow the lead. They lose a clutch game for the 15th time in 31 games, the 31st clutch game of the season. They tied the Timberwolves for the most clutch games played this season, and the Warriors take an L again to fall to 16-15. They're 10-12 on the road, 25-25 overall. We talked about the fact that since they were 15-15, 12-3, 3-12, adds up to 15-15. I won't run through all of them again, but the Warriors, since they were 18-18, have been 18-18, 19-19, 20-20, and so on, all the way now until 25-25. Win one, lose one, lose one, win one, lose one, 25-25, now 50 games into the season. Warriors 6-3 in the first game of back-to-backs. Warriors had won 3 straight in Utah and 7 straight over the Jazz. A lot of teams have been doing that. And the Warriors 2-22 when tied or trailing going into the fourth quarter. The Buddy Hield streak was stopped. Warriors lost for the first time when Hield scored more than 18 or more points. In this one, they had been 10-0. They are now 10-1 in those games on the year. And so the Warriors find themselves just a brutal loss. And now back on the national stage tomorrow against the Lakers, who will not have Luka Doncic, but it looks like Saturday has the potential to be, and we'll find out where Jimmy Butler's conditioning and everything is. I mean, he hadn't played since the 21st, which was the last game before his most recent suspension. So he hasn't played in a couple of weeks. We'll see where his conditioning is. I would imagine the Warriors, with what they're paying, are going to want to get him on the court quickly. But there may need to be a slight conditioning ramp up to where maybe he plays, if not Chicago, Milwaukee, or if it bleeds into the final couple of games before the break, it would be Dallas and Houston. But I think there are going to be I think the league wants him on the court pretty quickly. Could be a debut Saturday with Jimmy Butler making his Warriors debut and Luka Doncic making his Lakers debut on Saturday, as the Lakers are going to play an afternoon game. Warriors playing in the evening in Chicago on Saturday. All right, that'll do it. Big thanks to everybody in the YouTube chat. If I didn't get a chance to get to you tonight, we'll get to you tomorrow as well from Los Angeles. Thanks to Kyle Haar. Kyle, who else do we had? Raph. We had the great Raph Corral there tonight. Anybody I'm leaving out?
And Overnight Dave.
Oh, Overnight Dave always. Man, I didn't know we were going to get this show late enough tonight to see an Overnight Dave appearance, but we do get an Overnight Dave appearance. Hi, Dave. We'll see Dave tomorrow, as I'll be coming to you from Los Angeles, and we'll have all the reaction to the trade. And if the Warriors make another move from Los Angeles, we'll be on hand for that tomorrow, and then we'll see where things go from there. So for Kyle and Raph and Dave, big thanks to Larry Krueger for having me hop on Niners Nightly, and that was a fun hour that we did right in the aftermath of the trade, even during the game. And we'll talk to you tomorrow from LA. Warriors lose 131-128, but they pick up Jimmy Butler. It's KNBR 104.5 at 680, the sports leader.
Playing the clock, playing the situation. Let him mention 2-for-1 opportunity. Curry to Draymond, and it's blocked by Kessler. They got a 5-on-4. Chance to tie it. George for the lead. Got it.
John Dickinson.
No, God! No, God, please, no, no!
Big audio quality show.
You are a sicko, and I appreciate you for it, because I'm a sicko.
I just know they kicked our ass tonight.
No class, no balls.
Jimmy freaking Butler puts it in!